And here we are. This is gonna be an interesting experience again. So, how do we start here? Hello, and welcome to this random Egyptian dude's YouTube channel, living in Canada, making gaming videos and other. Well, I will make other videos on other topics in the future, hopefully, in the most casual way I can, so that I don't lose my mind. Hopefully, videos will slowly get better over time, but that's not the intent of this channel. This is more of an outlet for interesting topics, you know, just sort of like an online diary of things that I'm interested in. Just so that I have somewhere publicly where I can sort of like explain my thought process. So why did I, like, the first 6 videos on my channel are Hearthstone, so why am I playing the beginner's guide? It's because this game means a lot to me. I played this game in 2016, I think. So 2 years after it was released, I downloaded the Stanley Parable. It was like my 3rd semester in Canada, in university. I was living by myself. It was before the winter break, I think, of 2017. And I just wanted to download the Stanley Parable and play it again because I watched a game theory video or like live stream where they played the Stanley Parable. And I was like, oh, there are a few new endings to the Stanley Parable because I remember watching it a really long time ago. So I was really interested in playing the Stanley Parable again. And I noticed that there was this offer, this like bundle, where you could play the beginner's guide. And I was like, the beginner's guide? What's that? Right? So I just started playing the game in the past. And, I know that it won't really show the emotion that I had previously. And, that's not always expected. But I kind of want to explain specifically a few topics. So this is not going to be one of those video essays that's amazingly edited with a face cam. I'm just not there yet with those things. So I'm just gonna start the game, and yeah, we'll just play the game through, and might stop and add some commentary in between. I played this game tons of times. In like tough parts of my life. So I don't think there's too much I should add. I'll just split it into 2 parts, each like 40 to 50 minutes, and let's go.
Hi there. Thank you very much for playing The Beginner's Guide. My name is Davey Reedon. I wrote The Stanley Parable, and while that game tells a pretty absurd story, today I'm going to tell you about a series of events that happened between 2008 and 2011. We're going to look at the games made by a friend of mine named Coda. Now, these games mean a lot to me. I met Coda in early 2009 at a time when I was really struggling with some personal stuff, and his work pointed me in a very powerful direction. I found it to be a good reference point for the kinds of creative works that I wanted to make. So just to start you off, this is, I think, the first game he ever made. It's a level for Counter-Strike. You can walk around here, by the way.
Yeah.
And mostly it's just Coda learning the basics of building a 3D environment. But what I like is that even though he starts from the simple aesthetic of a desert town, he then scatters these colorful abstract blobs and impossible floating crates around the level. And of course, it destroys the illusion that this actually is a desert town, and instead this level becomes a kind of calling card from its creator. It's like a reminder that this video game was constructed by a real person. But it kind of makes you wonder, what was going through his head as he was building this? This is what I like about all of Coda's games. I mean, not that they're all fascinating as games, but that they are all going to give us access to their creator. I want us to see past the games themselves. I want to get to know who this human being really is. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. So, it's 2008, Coda starts making these games, and he never releases any. He doesn't put them onto the internet, he just makes them and then immediately abandons them, and they sit on his computer forever. And I think he really understood this image of himself as a recluse. At one point, he jokingly renamed his computer's recycling bin to Important Games Folder. So, this was just how he worked. He tended to crank them out one after the other without even really pausing to try to understand what he had just made, until suddenly one day, he just stopped. In 2011, that was it. He made his last game, and then he hasn't made another one since. And that's why I've taken this opportunity to gather all of his work together. Is because I find his games powerful and interesting, and I'd like this collection to reach him, to maybe encourage him to start creating again. And if the people like you who play this also happen to find his work interesting, then I'm sure it'll just send that much stronger of a message of encouragement to Coda. So thanks for joining me on this. If you have a particular interpretation that I haven't mentioned here, or if you just need to get in touch, you can email me at daveyWreden@gmail.com. Okay, that's about it for introduction. Let's take a look at Coda's first proper game. As each game is loading, I'll show you the date that it was completed. This first one was made in November 2008.
Yeah, this is gonna take a while. This game isn't too long for a game, but playing it 2 hours straight is gonna, there's just one thing I just want to turn off a few applications. Laptop's burning. I don't know. It's always had this issue. You just want to close as many applications as I can. Yeah. Okay.
This game is called Escape from Whisper, and it's one of the more generic games you'll see from Coda. You can click to fire the gun.
Okay. So if you don't do certain stuff, you'll get like a comment from the game.
It kind of looks like this game was abandoned mid-development. For instance, you have this gun, which you'd think would indicate that there are supposed to be monsters or enemies somewhere, but then clearly there are no enemies anywhere. You can't even reload the gun when you run out of bullets. But ultimately we don't really know. Maybe Coda thought that actually it was complete the way that it is. And I think that we should talk about his games for what they are, rather than for what they're not.
Okay.
Enemy force neutralized. Begin I love how you can see the bottom of the universe from this room.
Warning, this permission test active. Okay, so here's the thing that I was confused about playing this game, right? You can obviously see that it's a environment, but that's not the important thing. The thing is, the bottom of the universe comment that he says every time, it's just like a gray, empty space. You can't actually see the bottom of the universe, except if you're like looking like kind of like this. You can kind of think, oh yeah, the bottom of the universe, like the Milky Way galaxy and all. But if you just look down, it's just gray. It's not pretty or anything. It's just a big block of stars. Like, right, you're inside the square or cube. And pay attention to these. They're gonna be important later. Kind of.
apparently the space station has a labyrinth on it. Sure, I don't know. There's really no reason for it that I've ever been able to discern, so in the interest of time, I'm just gonna skip you on that story.
I can never complete it.
Or, if you'd really like to solve the labyrinth, you're welcome to do that too.
For whatever, I think it's the first right, and I always forget. I don't know what's up. Okay, so yeah, it's the first right. I always make this mistake and turn the second or the third right, thinking that it's not the first one. Like, here's where you come through, and then yeah, you can go through the first right. Like every time I replay this game, I make the same mistake. It's kind of poetic. I think that this game is all about making mistakes and being the flawed person, being incomplete.
Okay, this is the part that's interesting. The game has this narrative about the whisper machine and how it has to be turned off, and then you get to the engine room.
Okay, just give me a minute. I want to put the laptop on something in order to reduce the heat. I'm using an external hard drive, so I can barely move the laptop. Maybe I should turn off something.
Hey, you there, in the engine room. You could save us all. That being is powering the whisper machine. You could disrupt it by introducing
A great enough heat signature. Your body. Oh.
It's so much to ask, but for all of our lives, would you do it? Could you give yourself?
So yeah, this is the pretty obvious theme, or is it?
Let me pause here for a second. What you just experienced, stepping into the beam and then dying, is probably what Coda had initially intended when he was developing this level. But when he first compiles and plays it, something goes wrong. There's a bug somewhere, and this is what happens instead.
Okay, so you wake up again, go through here, and yeah, you begin levitating, floating in space.
The beam causes you to start floating. And this is an important moment for him. Because yes, this is technically a glitch, but Coda identifies something human about it, like how small it makes you feel in the face of this larger chaotic system. Or this floating could be the afterlife, a peaceful place, juxtaposed against all of the hysteria that you've just had to traverse. I don't even know. I have no idea what he was thinking, but what's clear is that after making this, something lodges itself in his brain. He wants to do more of these really weird and experimental designs. So he stops work on this and moves on to a stream of tiny little games that go in all sorts of directions. Let's go ahead and take a look at the first game he made after leaving this one behind.
Okay, game starting. This is the really cool one because you can't move forward, you can only move backwards.
Yep, in this game you can only walk backwards.
Pass was behind her. So let's go. Moving. And
so it's a short and relatively minimalist experiment combining motion and narrative. It is less advanced than the previous game, but actually it seems to be more focused, more complete. Code is trying to give it a unique voice rather than simply basing it on a pre-existing trope.
So, past was behind her, but the future could not be seen. Why did the future keep changing? Here, something on the wall. When she stops and looks, it becomes clear. But if the future is always behind her, how will she find the strength to confront it?
It's a short little thought, it says what it wants to say, and then it ends. Didn't need anything more than that. Which to me is why it works, because it gets out quick. Okay, next one.
You are now entering. Can't really do anything. Yeah.
And that's it. Okay, the meaning of this game won't be clear just yet. Please be patient with me for a few more games, and I promise you'll see what makes it interesting. Oftentimes, Coda would put bizarre titles like this one at the start of his games. I wish I'd known him at the time that he was making these early games. He would really only talk to me about his work as he was making it. Once he stopped work on a game, that was it. It was dead to him. And I don't agree with that at all, but what are you going to do?
So I'm not going to spoil anything. I don't know what someone seeing this for the first time would think. If anyone's going to see this for the first time. But the game is setting up a really interesting place. And I don't know, something about this map. Like, we already saw the first 3 maps. The past backwards game, the entering game, and the desert town. And now this one. This one, even though I like the previous game about you're walking backwards because of its narrative, this place feels so familiar, so soothing. You just hear the air, you see that familiar blue tint, and these tall buildings, like tall cuboids standing on their squares. And yep.
Once you've been slowed to an absolute crawl, the door at the top of the stairs opens. So why, if Coda's not showing these games to anyone, why bother opening the door at all? Well, to show you, I'm modifying the game here so that when you press enter, it'll bring you back up to full speed so you can enter the door for yourself.
So we have a dilemma here. We can either waste a good 2 minutes walking up the stairs, or we can press enter. And I have waited the full 2 minutes multiple times before playing this game. So I'm not going to do that to you guys. This is my favorite soundtrack from the game, or one of my favorite ones. You walk around, pursuing, talking to people about it.
A room that's warm and nice and filled with little ideas for games. Coda would often tell me that he didn't mind if people thought of him as cold or distant. He said that he knew that he was actually a vibrant and compassionate person, but that it takes time to really see that. It can be a very slow climb to get there.
It was pretty special. I think there was like press F to surrender somewhere. Press U. Doesn't do anything though. Kind of what you expect from this Stanley Parable creator, that the game has like all these hidden secrets. It's kind of like Toby Fox with Undertale and Deltarune. That the second game was very subversive and very different from the first one, but also aesthetically similar. This game is the same way, where it looks similar to the Stanley Parable. Like you're an invisible body moving without the voice and a narrator, but you don't really have choice in this game compared to the Stanley Parable. Or there's not even the illusion of choice like the Stanley Parable. You have absolutely no choice. You just do stuff, and choices doesn't give you an alternative, interesting option. At least till now, there was no real choice of doing anything. There were just voice lines you could activate by doing certain actions, like going back through the tunnel, or if we had walked around the gray area, he would tell us there's nothing around here, and there isn't. There wasn't around. Fitting music. So this is really
Well,
important.
this is new for Coda. It's an actual puzzle. Go ahead and see if you can solve it.
So the first time I ever played this puzzle, I think it's actually pretty easy. Most people would get it. I didn't struggle too much doing it. I actually did it really fast. Relatively, I got through the first 2 steps, I think. But, so you open it, you go through, it's a dark area, but what else are you supposed to do here? So then most people are like, oh, I could lock myself in. And then you notice, oh, there's a third lever. So it's actually pretty simple.
Don't forget that solution, because we're going to see this puzzle again soon. We're going to see it a lot.
So see the 3 dots again? In the first game, the 3 dots, there was no puzzle. But the 3 dots are symbolic of something, and there are people on Reddit, or like were people on Reddit when the game came out in like 2014, I think. And this game is pretty, I think it came out 2014, there are a bunch of YouTube videos about it. The 3 YouTubers I enjoy watching that played it were Rage Gaming Videos, Nate Wants to Battle, and Jacksepticeye. And those 3 YouTubers played the game. They all had separate, unique experiences. They all had different takes on the narrative and how it reflected their identity. Some people were a lot more emotional. Some people were a lot more unfazed. Some people were a lot more interested and contemplative. They contemplated their own thoughts about the game and how it related to them. So it's a pretty. I think everyone needs to play this game at least once. Kind of like those sort of like games like Undertale, Deltarune, Stanley Parable. Those games where it evokes something in you when you play it. I'm ruining the experience for someone. I think if anyone should watch this game. Shouldn't watch this game first. They should play this game first. I made sure my little brother did so, and it affected him too. Not sure if that's coming across. I think kind of spoiling it even by just talking about it like this much.
So that seems to be it, right? You walk down a corridor, you solve a puzzle, you get to the end. Simple enough. Alright, now I'm going to modify the game again, so that when you press enter, it'll remove all of the walls from this room.
Let's go!
How about that? There was more to it than we had any way of knowing. I actually find it funny that this game comes after the Stairs game, since they essentially convey the opposite idea. So, in the Stairs game, a dull exterior concealed a rich interior, and then, in this level, a dull interior hides this fantastic outer world. Either way, I think that the point is the same, is that most of the time you don't get to know what you're missing, or even that you're missing anything. That's not your role as a player. So if your role here is not to understand, then what is it?
That's the ultimate question. And now, the exiting game. Or I guess, spoilers. You're now exiting.
So, this, combined with the entering game from earlier, tells us that Coda believes his games are connected somehow. It could even be that the Stairs game and Puzzle game are literally connected in between this and the entering game. There's a bigger picture that all of his games are meant to play a role in, some larger meaning that we won't be able to grasp until we've seen all of them. And once we have, we can step back and start to understand what exactly that bigger picture is.
Man, this game is so aesthetically pleasing. Granted, you could just get lost if you just looked in one direction, but there you go. I love this.
Let's talk about video game development for a second. Every video game runs on what's called an engine, which determines what the game can and cannot do. So in other words, the engine is a set of tools for game development.
Streetwise fool.
To make all of these games, Coda is using an engine called Source. Like all engines, Source has certain things that it does well, and it has certain things that it does poorly. One of the things that it does very well is boxy linear corridors. That's why so many of Coda's games are set in these large, flat, empty rooms, is just because he's working with what the engine does well.
I'd go to this
Tools
cafe.
available to the creator shape what kinds of creative work they're going to end up making. You might consider paying attention to the architecture in Coda's games, to notice how they seem to stem from an engine that's very good at producing linear, boxy corridors.
Okay. It's like only like 2 of the doors actually can be opened or closed. And you can't interact with anything. The game's like teasing you. Being like trying to give you interaction like the Stanley Parable. That's what you expect after coming to that game. It just doesn't. It's doing something else. Uh-oh. 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 Oh, well, I guess, speeding up the process. You just fell all the way down. Didn't even do the parkour. Didn't have to, but usually I just do it anyways. And there's this invisible light, I guess, to light up this area. Sometimes I feel like there's a disconnect between, like, having to create an item using a program to make light rather than just creating the artificial light to begin with. I'm not an expert. I don't program games. Don't even program anything really. Just took one programming course to use Java and Raptor. Like, Raptor was a different course, but the same. And we're locked in this state prison. This state government-run prison, I guess. Ooh, what happened? You can't even walk on the side. It's like, nothing. It's like when I watched the videos about this game after I played it for the first time, because, you just want to know someone else's thoughts on the same game you played. It just bothered me.
This prison, funny enough, in Coda's original design, the doors stayed shut for a full hour before letting you go. If you don't mind, I think we're going to skip that. This is something that he and I used to argue about a lot. Whether a game ought to actually be playable, whether it means anything if no one can get through it. And I would always defend that, all this work goes into the game, why not make it playable and accessible? And so we just got into heated arguments over it, and there was one time that after one of these conversations, he went home, and a day or two later, he sent me a zip file entitled Playable Games that was full of hundreds of individual games, each of which was just an empty box that you walked around in and nothing else. Believe me, I played every single one of those just to find out if there was like a gag hidden somewhere. There wasn't.
Then make sure they were copy pasted. It's games like these that want me to create my own game, book, story, or whatever medium to express my thoughts, just like this game does. Just like Davey. Something so personal about this, even if that's kind of one of the criticisms that this game sells to the players who play the Stanley Parable. Like we're trying to find secrets in games. Look for stuff that isn't there. Like these 3 dots. This is the 3rd time. I think. And the puzzle again. 2nd time.
It's the puzzle again, with the exact same solution as the last time.
You doesn't have to tell me that. Confuse me. But that's not the point.
There's still no clear indication of what makes this puzzle so special that Coda is going to return to it over and over. But I promise I'll share with you my interpretation very shortly. Here, Coda begins using a kind of dialogue system that he fashioned out of the engine's chat capabilities. Use the 1, 2, 3 buttons on your keyboard to respond.
Yeah, so the game can't tell you, can't tell them when they want to know. I wonder why these are bookings. Oh, never knew that these were doors. Yeah, I don't remember how I solved it. Trying to remember, but I can't. He tells how to eat the end. Listen. Ooh. And oh, there they are again. They're actually crossing their arms. Were they crossing their arms? Are they in the same exact position as last time? Or are they in a different position, signifying something? Yes, you want to know how to solve it? There's an irony to this game.
And so we make one last descent down to the final floor of the level.
Lamppost from the opening.
It's a lamppost. Okay, I can't tell you quite why, but for some reason, Coda fixates on this lamppost. It's going to appear at the end of every single one of his games from here on out. I'll tell you what I think. I think that up to this point, he's been making really strange and abstract games with no clear purpose, and maybe you can only float around in that headspace for so long. Because now he wants something to hold on to. He wants a reference point. He wants the work to be leading to something. He wants a destination, which is what this lamppost is. It's a destination. We're going to see it in the work as well. His games are just going to become a lot more cohesive, a lot more fully developed, with more of a clear idea behind them. And as we go, that idea will get clearer and clearer and clearer.
As you walk around, you can leave notes connected to the internet. No, it's not. All notes are left by players. Okay. Nice room.
So first off, I'm sure you can deduce this, but this game is not connected to the internet. All of the notes that you're going to see have been written by Coda. This was actually the first game of his that I ever played. This was shortly after I met him at a weekend game jam in Sacramento, where I grew up. I saw him working on this very level, and it was just so different from anything that anyone else was doing. So right away I was like, I have to be friends with this person. In retrospect, I think I was probably a bit too pushy, trying to get his attention. I was over-enthusiastic. But he was very gracious about it and very patient with me. And I cooled off eventually. So feel free to skip over any of these notes if they're not doing anything for you. Nothing extra is going to happen if you read all of them.
He is right.
Either way, to me they convey a sense of loneliness. I see this person who's filled with thoughts and feelings and beliefs and has no way to express them except as scattered and unheard voices in a game that wasn't meant to be played.
You feel like a hero yet.
But it's
Ouch.
ironic, isn't it, that in playing this game and seeing how alone Coda often felt, that we get to know him better and actually kind of connect with him. And I have to be honest with you, this idea is really seductive to me. That I could just play someone's game and see the voices in their head and get to know them better and have to do less of the messy in-person socializing. I could just get to know you through your work. I think this is why I always liked Coda's games so much, is because it felt like they let me have that connection. I felt as though he was inviting me personally into his world. And then I feel less lonely too.
That's kind of exactly what this game is doing to me. I don't think I skipped any notes, but regardless, it doesn't do anything. I think I checked all these notes out before. There's a lot of notes. What the shit with this kid? Boring. I can assure you're guaranteed. I can assure you're guaranteed that there is an acorn somewhere here in this place, and the sailors are looking for it. Okay, I can assure you, guarantee. Okay, the grammar there makes it really hard to read. Kind of like you want to tell this to somebody when you're feeling lonely. I refuse to believe. But I need to go to the frickin' bathroom. Recognize me, please. There's nothing here. Go back. Don't listen to that guy. Free t-shirt. Need other side door. Why use so? Door how open? Open sesame. Games include doors. Can't open doors. Someday I'll meet the person who made this. I help people because of the eternal good feeling I get. New room. You hear the chime. Keep going, don't they? I would very much like to be desired. It's not very crowded here. Scared of writing something, don't want to feel judged. You can go in here, I think. Don't bother. Well, congratulations, I don't know where to go with this. A game where you leave notes and suddenly everyone's a poet. This is where I get off. I fail to write anything here. I am compelled. Stop, turn back, proceeding further will only result in misery. Take my hand, let's jump together. Cabot shapes our nation. This, what did that think? This one just so jokey. Hey, don't talk to me that way. It does not matter if you ever get over there. Very good game. I think this is not going anywhere. Next time I will do better. I need someone to talk to. This is a note. Don't listen to other names. No, I'm done. I'm not safe. Like, this is gonna take way too long. Play this game if you're interested in the notes. There's nothing extraordinary. Maybe one of them talks about that majestic penguin again, but you'll all die someday. Spoilers doesn't mean anything. What's that spoilers for, do you think? Devil Tower style. He was himself the most horrible creature he could imagine. So many of these hit home, don't they? Well, I'm here now. We're all here now. There must be a reason for this. There we go. This terrible secret, he kept it well. I beat the game. More room.
At the end of this level, we're going to see the puzzle again. And here, I'll tell you what I think the puzzle means. Each of these games represents an idea that was on Coda's mind at the time that he was making it. And the puzzle is a way of closing the door on a previous chapter of his life before moving on to the next one. In each of his games, after exploring a theme that, he might find difficult, Coda can then place this puzzle that he knows has a reliable solution, he understands exactly how it works, and so it gives him a simple mechanism for moving on. And because there's this dark area between the doors, a space between the spaces, before you move on, you get to pause. Just for a moment, a few seconds to reflect on and let go of the events that led you here. To step back and connect the pieces together. To grasp at that elusive bigger picture.
I guess
this
they
one
do.
is tough. It's going to kind of just spin its own wheels for a few minutes. Hang with it.
Give me a minute, I'll be back. Keep going. I'd like to live in this house. Looks really fancy. And where are we?
See, this is it. The whole game. And there's nothing that's particularly interesting about it. You just walk to the end of a hallway. Except, for some reason, Coda gets really fixated on this prison that has all of this modern furniture. And I don't know why, but he decides he needs to revisit this prison. He's going to start over, use the same assets, turn it into something else. Okay, cool. Here's version 2.
Okay. Center of the room. Okay, what would I want? I want number 1. But it's a glass table. Huge picture of a horse, washing machine, 10 stoves. A picture of a horse. Oh, look, couches. I think we should light up the room. The Tesla coil one is the coolest one, but it's never gonna pick anything besides what's there. A lamp. No table. We need a table. Tables were invented in 1935. That is not true, depending on what table specifically, but tables have been a thing since, I think, ancient times? Pretty sure none of my choices are making a difference. Who are you? What exactly are you doing? And here we go.
There's a bit more to this one, but still, it's not really communicating anything. It's kind of just weird for weirdness' sake. So, okay, he throws it out and starts over. This time he comes at the prison idea from a different direction.
That will enable you to escape the prison from the environment. Follow the instructions carefully. Take care that you remember each step. See? 3 dots again. First, click on the table. Go over to the photo. Now turn the lamp off. Or on. Is that what we were supposed to do? Or did it say on and off? Now go to the left side, so move it over a little. Finally, touch the shelves. That's it. Prison, do the same thing. Return to start. All that stuff. So what does it say here? Return. If you stand on it and
And of course, now the table is gone and you can't begin the chain of events to escape. Here's a version where there are no bars, but you can't actually get to the well. And then a version where the inside of the prison is the outside and the outside is the inside. Let me just blink you real quick through a few more of these. I mean, he really unloaded on this prison idea. There's nearly a dozen. Personally, I think it's awful to watch this. To see a person basically unraveling through the world. And for what? Like, at what point do you just go, yeah, maybe there are game ideas other than this prison that I could be working on. But Coda doesn't have that voice telling you to stop. That particular mechanism of defense against yourself. Without it, you just spiral. And so he keeps going and going and going and going and going. And then he hits on something. And he likes it. And that's it. He's done. He stops making prisons. This is the very last version of the prison game that he created. And the reason I think it works is that the prison is not actually in it.
this is a catharsis moment for the game. Let's go. Hello. Who is this? Hey, it's me. You actually listening.
It's a conversation. And so this is what Coda wants, is to be able to talk to someone, to share what's on his mind, and to get some good advice from someone who knows. But the irony is that even in this scenario, you're still talking to yourself. You know, all of these games so far are Coda talking to himself.
Actually, I'm already forgetting the other life is strange in a way I kind of miss it. This one.
I can see why he considers this a fitting conclusion to the prison games. After all of the obsession and frustration, just to be told by someone you can trust that things are going to be okay, wouldn't that be nice?
There's a better ending to that conversation. Less ambiguous.
So what would it look like if Coda wanted to make a game about talking to someone other than himself?
This is the room, the area, the thing that matters to me a whole time. Yeah, so in the previous room, there was a conversation where you just tell him to talk about his problems. I forget the third option, but you can look back. But if you tell him to talk and you say he'll talk for a bit, you need someone to talk to, that feels way better to get that option. I just was curious about the sincere one. But it turned out to be one of those vague prophecy-like things. I don't like that as much as just talking to someone. But it's being sincere.
To me, this environment is meant to represent Coda's puzzle, with the two doors on either side and a dark transitional space between. You'll notice that the quality of the art is a step up from previous games, including this new and improved chat system, which he started using from this point on. From here on out, he begins putting much more effort into the visual polish of his work, and this particular game took 2 months to create as a result.
Yeah, this house is really pretty. The music in this game is so emotional. Who wouldn't want to live in something like this? This glass window house in this small, hidden off corner of the world between these two doors, with all these books to read, this cozy bed. It does feel a bit lonely though. There's another door that doesn't open. And look at this game. drink. What is soda? Cheesy person. The orchids.
After the intense set of prison games, this house cleaning level almost feels like cleansing. It's the moment after a particularly difficult or traumatic experience where you just need to let it sit and digest inside of you, and eventually cohere into something meaningful.
Is that the Narnia book? The line on it. I don't know. These are all probably readable books. Maybe there's a trick here where you're supposed to read any of these books and there's like insight on the game. The only ones I could think of is Edward something. But they're also briefly rendered. You can't tell the color. And there's a train on that one. So come and do the dishes. Okay.
I know that Kuda really liked this game. Of all of his work, actually, this was the only one that he called me up to ask me to come over and look at it. This was during a period of a few months where he was like grossly happy all the time, just walked around with a constant smile on his face.
Yeah, number 3 is the most honest. I really dislike how this. Oh, yeah.
I'm glad he made this. I'm glad he found some peace. But, of course, it can't last. The music stops, your companion is gone, it's time to leave. The door at the top of the hill is now open as well. Again, you can't stay in the dark space for too long. You just can't. You have to keep moving. It's how you stay alive.
Damn, I'd want a house like this one day. But somewhere out of the way. And probably not in Canada. Just because I don't like the winter here. It's really cold. Oh wow, the windows are gone now. It just lets you out. Yeah.
Which is the whole point of the puzzle doors, right? That sooner or later you have to pick up and move. I really thought that was the point of it. This one gets a bit goofy. About halfway through the game, the perspective shifts.
The eye of the storm.
And you play as the teacher. And suddenly, you discover that your teacher is just as bigoted and afraid as you are. Oh, and also you can move around the classroom now.
Yeah, I'm not gonna pick all the correct, perfect answers. That's not the point of the game for me. I'm gonna pick the answers that are the most personal. Yeah, those didn't really have anything too personal. Funny enough, this one's the most accurate for us. Wait. Okay, so in the previous game, the dialogue appeared to something and then changed really quickly. So I'm gonna look through it again after this video just to see, hey, look, there's a person there who's listening. I wonder what they would think. And there's the like post. Do these things just appear without me being aware of it? Yeah, they probably did. There's something behind you. Look out. Feel what is true, what is simplest, do what is easiest. What if I'm not a good teacher?
I felt pretty hard for this one. I feel like it's one of the most relatable experiences that you can have. To assume that some other person is perfect and totally fulfilled in every way, and completely miss all of the little flaws that make them painfully human. I think about this game a lot these days. This one took a lot longer than all the others for Coda to make. It was 4 months between this and the last one. That's twice as long as it took him to make any other game before this, and it's not like it's particularly complex, so I remember I found that a little strange at the time.
Yeah. I don't know how long I've been sitting down here. Maybe an hour and a half? An hour? Oh, dude, you can sit on it. Dude, never mind. Uh, this is so stupid. The game's glitching. Uh, but why isn't happy? And a chair. Oh, these things. Oh, these are fun. Oh, they make you dance. It's like a song. I wonder if anyone can actually make a song out of this. There's a bunch of notes here, but if they're, can you compose them into a coherent sheet of music? Oh, running away from the crowd. And yeah, let's go. Trapped behind the fence. Another.
The game ends with this eerie premonition of what's going to happen next in Coda's life. The solution, social anxiety, to fears of having to perform and having to chase success, the answer for Coda is to withdraw, to hide himself away. Which is what leads to scenarios like the stairs that slowed you down several games ago, where it just becomes harder and harder to access Coda's inner landscape because he keeps retreating. He just keeps backing away from possible connections to anyone other than himself. And to be honest, I didn't consider it very healthy when I first played this game. You know, it looked to me like he was trying to justify the idea of just disconnecting yourself. And that wasn't what I wanted for him or for his games. Because I feel like a lot of his games are inviting me to connect with this person, to bring him closer. But what can you do? After this, Coda went off and took another 5 months to make a new game.
Okay, so I'll close my eyes, okay? So normally you just die. I'm blind, I can't see anything.
Like I said, I was getting concerned. First off, he's never been this explicit in his work about exactly what he's thinking. So where's that coming from? But then, even weirder, his work has potentially stopped being an outlet for him. Not like he's having trouble iterating on ideas, but he literally just can't think of new ideas anymore. And in person, he was being a lot more distant than usual. Like, you know how sometimes a person will just deflect anything that you say in order to keep themselves disconnected all the time? It was that kind of thing. Here was the point in my relationship with Coda where I really started to wonder if he needed my help in some way. His games are going to get more desperate from here on out. After this game, it's almost 6 months before he finishes something new. If the last game featured Coda talking explicitly about his creative frustrations, this one turns it up to 11. Now, put yourself in my shoes, please. Here's a friend whose work is exhibiting signs of struggle, frustration, anxiety, depression, even.
Oh, I pressed
And yet,
3.
still, he keeps making games. He keeps throwing himself into the grinder even when he clearly doesn't have the energy for it anymore. Why? What is it for?
So I pressed the third option, the one that wasn't deal, and it made it deal anyways. Shinto looking thing. You know, Japanese shrine. Or whatever that gate to another dimension like the spirit world was in Japan.
Because from my perspective at the time, and just what I knew of him, this was a result of how isolated he was. He was in his own little bubble, just sitting at his computer all day, not really showing these games to anyone, not releasing them onto the internet, and so he didn't have anyone outside of himself to connect with. He had no outlet to ground himself on.
I wonder what you say if you say it. You know. I wonder if they're all correct or it just messes up. And we're out.
You can't talk yourself out of loneliness. It doesn't work that way. You can't be the one writing both the questions and the answers. Then there's no movement. Then there's no circulation. If all of your anxieties are being channeled into your work, then if the work ever fails, you have no backup and you're just going to crash.
Here are the words I sent. The options I picked.
Seeing this game at the time that he made it looked really unhealthy. I was watching him do this to himself, and I hated it. I hated seeing him so. It's like video games are not worth this amount of suffering. This is someone I really cared about, and I used to get so much joy out of seeing him create. For him to suddenly become angry and frustrated like this was the worst thing for me.
I didn't pick that option, did I?
I don't know. This is what I felt at the time. I don't know how else to explain it.
Not always on that.
I wanted it to stop more than anything. I never felt so rotten. I needed more than I had ever needed anything for this to stop.
Hey, look, that's the house from earlier.
But it didn't stop.
And the lamppost.
After finishing this one, Coda takes another 7 months and comes up with a new game.
Is this No, it's not. The guard. There's nothing here. Three dots again.
And of course, it's the machine.
Instead of the gear, make the machine. The creativity machine. Okay. Feels like near Automata Shab Town, or whatever it's called. We're going full circle.
So now the work is becoming self-destructive. And I'll tell you, at the time that I first played this game, shortly after he made it, here's what I'm thinking to myself. I'm thinking that code is stuck in his own head, and that it's having a very negative effect on him, and that all he needs to do is just start showing his work to people, to get some actual feedback on his games. It might get him out of isolation. And so, as I'm thinking this, I realize that I could be the one to initiate it. Because it would never occur to Coda to start actively soliciting feedback, so what if I did it for him? If he could see the difference it would make to have more actual conversations with other human beings, would that bring him out of his mental spiral? Would it give him confidence in himself? Would it bring meaning back into his work?
Not breaking this place, but apparently it's already damaged. Let's just break this part. Oh, we can fall through.
So I started showing Coda's work to people. I took this one, and the island which you just played, the theater, the notes, the house cleaning game, and some of the prison escape games. I brought them to people that I knew and trusted. I asked their opinions. And the great part is that they really loved his games. You know, the point of it all was just to give him some external reference point, but they genuinely loved his work. There was nothing for him to be afraid of.
The lamppost is to the left. I can't do anything else. It's like that one ending where you pick up the phone in the Stanley Parable. You have no choice.
Can you see why I felt like this was the right thing to do? Because it's the thing that I always feel like I need, to be told that my work is good, that I am good. When someone really connects with a thing that I've made, when they see themselves purely in my work, there's nothing that feels better. And I got to give that very same feeling to my friend. I did something, I really felt like I'd done something good, like I was a good person. I felt like there was a friend who was in trouble and was unhappy and maybe didn't like themselves, and I could fix it. If I could give him this gift, maybe I could fix the problem. They told me how much they enjoyed his games. It was the best feeling. It was the absolute best feeling. It made me feel so happy. So beautifully, beautifully happy.
I guess I didn't destroy the machine, so that's a good thing.
So anyway, Coda finishes this game, and then really he just kind of takes off for a while. So this is June of 2011, and I didn't hear anything from him for several weeks, I guess. And so out of nowhere, one day I get an email, and it's got a private link to a new game of Coda's. This one is called The Tower, and to my knowledge, it's the last game that Coda ever made. So let's take a look.
June 2011.
And this is where I have trouble saying anything meaningful about Coda's work. Because more than anything else, The Tower just feels distant. It feels like it's trying to distance itself from the world. It's a very cold game.
I think I had a dream about this lately. Or maybe I watched a YouTube video by someone. But I feel like
This room actually has a maze in it. Except that all the walls of the maze are invisible. And then every time you touch one of the walls, there's this awful flashing and noise. So the experience is really miserable. The game goes beyond not being meant to be played. It actually seems to despise the player for trying to play it at all. But I do want to show you the rest of the levels, so when you're ready to continue, press enter, and I'll put a bridge over the maze.
yeah, there's no way to get through this realistically. Okay, that's 2 steps. Let's try at least a 3rd step. Okay, like this. Okay, so it's not right up. So okay, we go right, we go up. Maybe it's actually this way. Okay, never mind. Enter. Feels like hell. Oh no! These look like the Stanley Parable walls. Walls 128.12. It's like you
And to
inhabit
be
this
fair,
world.
it's not like this is the first game that's needed some modification to be playable. Like the house cleaning game. You know, that one used to actually loop the cleaning chores and you just cleaned a house forever. I had to cut it off so that you could exit the house and the game would actually end. But that game had an idea that it was actually trying to communicate. What's the deeper idea behind the invisible maze? The only way past this challenge is to randomly guess the 6-digit code. Like the invisible maze, it's frustrating to me, because it's the opposite of everything else that Coda has made. It doesn't encourage thought or engagement. It doesn't ask anything of me, except a lot of my time. If I could have reached him during this time, then maybe I could have asked him.
There's a
But
million possibilities.
I still don't really understand why this is here. I'll put the code on the ground for you here, though, so that we can move on.
No. Is this in hexadecimal code or something? Or I guess it could be... I think it can't even fall off. Okay.
The switch to open this door is actually on the other side of the door, meaning that it's literally impossible to solve from this side. So even if you somehow brute forced your way through the first 2 challenges, and you got to this point, there's actually just no way to progress. And it's scary for me. The idea of Coda cutting himself off entirely, just saying, that's it, that's the end of the conversation, not giving me any way to fix the problem. I feel like a failure, I guess, when I can't fix the problem. I can open this door for you, so let me do that.
That's the switch.
Was I a failure for not understanding this game? I don't know why I would be. It's not like everything needs to have a solution. But I feel it somehow. I feel like I failed, and I don't understand why. I remember, it's June of 2011. I'm playing this for the very first time. And as I'm playing, I'm thinking to myself, I don't know this person. I have no idea who this person is. It wasn't the guy I knew. It wasn't my friend. I had come to so many conclusions from looking at all of his work up to this point, and then suddenly none of them... I had been trying to, though. That was the thing. For years I was trying to get to know him, to understand who he actually was and what he stood for. I asked him so many times to please just tell me what his games mean to him. I asked him please to tell me what the 3 dots mean. And he wouldn't.
Could be arbitrary. And there's also the possibility of the narrator being unreliable. The game gets really intense here.
I just felt so strongly that if I could have connected with him, that if I could have somehow made his work my own, that I would finally be once and for all happy. It was that I needed to see myself in someone else. I needed to be someone other than me. But he stopped and left. It felt somehow like I had failed.
Ego and the super ego and self? I forget what they are.
Where did I screw up?
So, this is
I'm the reason that you stopped making games, aren't I? It's because of what I did. Poisoned it for you.
the game gets glitchy not because the game is glitchy, because my laptop's crap. Or overheating. Even though there's only 2 applications open.
I don't think I ever told you this, but when I took your work and I was showing it to people, it actually felt... it felt as though I were responsible for something important and valuable. And the people who played them, they treated me like I was important. They really listened and cared about what I had to say. Even though I was showing your work, I felt good about myself. Finally, for a moment, while I had that, I liked myself.
Stop adding solutions to them.
And then you stopped, and I didn't have anything left to show people. I just had to be with myself. And as soon as that happened, there was no feeling at all. Nothing. Less than nothing. What is that? I'm afraid that I did something really stupid because I don't like myself.
Hope one day you can make peace with that thing you're wrestling. And when you finally do, don't say anything.
That's why I'm releasing this collection of your work, is because I haven't been able to find any other way to reach you. I've tried everything. And so a part of me has hope that if I put this compilation out into the world, and if I put my name on it, that maybe enough people will play it so that it'll find its way to you, so that I can tell you that I'm sorry. I know I screwed up. If I apologize to you truly and deeply, will you start making games again? Please, I need to feel okay with myself again. And I always felt okay as long as I had your work to see myself in. I mean, is something wrong with me? Because I know that I did an awful thing, and I'm doing it again right now. Like, I'm showing people your work, but I can't stop myself from doing it. That's how badly I need to feel something again, like I'm an addict. There has to be something wrong with me. Can I apologize? What if I tell you I was wrong? Will that work? Will that fix it? I don't know. I don't think it will, but there's nothing else that I can do. Just tell me what you want. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Please, start making games again. Please help me. Please give me some of whatever it is that makes you complete. I want whatever that wholeness is that you just summoned out of nothing. You put in your work. You were complete in some way that I never was. I want to know I want to know how to be a good person. I want to know how not to hate myself. Please. I'm fading, and all I want is to know that I'm going to be okay.
The epilogue. I'm gonna pause this here for a second. Okay, let's continue. So, it was that one line for me. That and the house streaming game and a few others, like the walk, the past, backwards game. That line, that wholeness.
More love, more praise, more people telling me that I'm good. Always more. It's like a disease.
For me, it's that single line, that wholeness that you summon out of nothing, and that you put into your work, that made you complete somehow. To me, that line is, at the time at least, was sort of like the exact thing I wanted to hear. That house cleaning game, the walking backwards, there's a few parts of this game that evoke really strong emotions in me. And the wholeness that I'm missing in my life that I see other people have. I kind of see this game reflecting me. And I think one thing this game is criticizing is reading into a creator's work, specifically meta creators, right? Who create special games like Toby Fox and Dave Uridan and other people like the creators of Dan Savato, I think, creating Doki Doki. I think it's mostly Davey Reedon with his games. This is a critique of his own experience, but it also applies to like reading into video games in general and finding stuff that is there in this new meta wave of games having these deep, complex, multi-layered stories with all these thematic elements to them and trying to read into them and creators creating and there's like overabundance of stuff and sometimes people just create games just because. It's like sometimes people just create their own work. They don't want to share it.
Solution, solution, solution.
The train stopped at this place. This house, this old, run-down mansion.
I guess if someone had told me ahead of time that he just really enjoyed making prison games, maybe I wouldn't have thought he was so desperate. I wouldn't have told so many people that he was depressed. Maybe he just likes making prisons.
Okay, if I don't check the left side, even though I know there's nothing there, I might just go crazy. There's nothing special about this on the other side. Wait, did I actually do something here? Whatever. I just feel like I'd go insane if I didn't check every nook and cranny of this game, even though I played it a ton of times. Because for some reason, I have this obsession. So we go up to this floor. It's all nice.
Even now, the disease is telling me to stop. Don't show people what a shitty person you are. They'll hate you.
Golden frame with nothing. Just a white frame. Communicate. There's nothing in this game. Absolutely empty. And it's pretty big. Really dark. And kind of telling you where the light is. So you can get out of this game with all these support.
If I knew that my life depended on finding something to be driven by other than validation, what would that even be? It's strange, but the thought of not being driven by external validation is unthinkable. Like, I actually cannot conceive of what that would be like.
This game always makes me wonder, is it fictional or real? Or a mix of the two? kind of like wrestling. Where is where's the line between fact and fiction? Is there a new type of
What now?
fact created through these games?
I think I need to go. And I'm sorry, because I know that I said that I would be here and I would walk you through this, but I'm starting to feel like I have a lot of work to do. I have a lot that I need to make up for. So I'm just gonna. Okay.
This part is pretty nostalgic to me, at least. So, one day he says he can't imagine validation. Like, here's the thing: I don't look. I searched forums and I looked at it. Should I even question this game, or is it better to just sit by? It's really up to you. Just to either just absorb it as is and not bother the creator, or like try to read into it to know is the story fact, fiction, built from fiction, or built from fact, but it's a fictional story. They're completely fiction. There's so many meta levels to this game. And this evokes to me, reminds me of Egypt back home, and the deserts and pyramids and the Red Sea mountains chain, the empty desert surrounding home, and all the metaphors you can use. There's nothing here, and he's just gone. The voice is not going to tell me to do anything. It's not going to tell me don't go here, don't go there. There's nothing here. Because they remind me of Sonic's rings that you go through. But yeah, there's nothing here. There are holes inside these stones that don't lead anywhere. And there's only one hole in the ground. You can get up using these stairs. You can't even, yeah, you have to go around. Sorry, guys. So there's this one hole that you fall down through. We're just going up by ourselves with our thoughts. If you play this game for the first time, and after all the reveals and the plot twists and all the information that you got, this moment really is a moment of levity where you just sit there and think. But for me, I get to air my thoughts. Like I play this game so many times. I don't know what I'm searching for in this game. But I feel like that's kind of like the point. These types of games, they evoke certain emotions. Creators want to create emotion in their audience. You want to tell a story. I think that's um, an objective part of life. Like it's a constant. No matter what, people want to tell stories, whether they tell it through religion, through politics, through ideology, through cooking, through architecture, through making YouTube videos, through music, through creating technology, through healing people, through writing books, so many ways. And I'm doing the same thing because I want to express myself, but through thoughts, sort of like unfiltered, just with a game that is built on this concept, directly confronting the thoughts that I had. But that's more of the human experience. We're all too similar. so we relate too easily. But is that a bad thing? That we see ourselves in something that's not related to us whatsoever, that wasn't made specifically for us, but it's made generally, and we just see ourselves in it. Is that wrong? That's the question that I come to through this game. Is it wrong that through the Stanley Parable and through the Beginner's Guide and through so many other games that I played, like What Remains of Edith Finch and that Lonely Road game and all those types of games, all these types of games, is it wrong for me to see myself? Is it wrong to me to pity myself and to feel sad? Should I even be thinking too much? Or should I just act? The game can barely render. The sunset. We're just going for it.
Turn back from this cave. You said, let me prove that I'm brave. Let me keep going. But the cave goes miles and miles and miles. And you are so tired that I know that you're strong. So turn back, turn back.
Yeah, so I guess this is it. We're back in the beginning. The beginning of the game. I think I aired most of my thoughts. I played this game to relive it again. It's really hard to feel that way. That this game made me feel. I cried a few times. I cried the house cleaning game the first time I played it. I don't even know why. Something about that. Something about this game. For whatever reason, every time I replay this game, it just reaffirms to me that this is one of my favorite games. And it's not really a game even. It kind of is. It's kind of just a story. Well, thanks for going on this journey with me and to the journeys that we will go on in the future. Thanks.